This episode of HTM Tech is brought to you by Rogue Energy. Rogue Energy offers a wide range of products including energy drinks and dietary supplements containing 0 sugar, 0 to 5 calories, B vitamins, gluten-free, soy-free, and 100% vegan. Rogue Energy products are a great alternative to those corner store energy drinks that are loaded with sugar and cause you to crash soon after. Head over to rogueenergy.com where viewers of HTM Tech can get 10% off any order placed. Not just your first order, but any time you order. Just use offer code HTM Tech at the checkout to get your discount on one of the hottest energy drink brands on the market. Hey, don't take our word for it. Try it for yourself today.
Hey guys, Joe the Tech Guy back here with another episode of HTM Tech. For those of you new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure you hit like and subscribe so that you get notified every time I put out new content. For those of you returning, thank you so much for stopping by again. Speaking of stopping by again, because I'm doing 2 of these for you today. As I spoke to Jarg earlier about the upcoming iPad event coming up in May and what we kind of see from what's going to come out of that. I put up a post up on some hacky social media page there. I don't know what it's called. And talking about digital books as opposed to, or the old books that we kind of know and love. And, what's better? And my good friend, Mr. Melchor, I can't talk to you. I've been doing too much talking. Answered the call and said, I want to be on this episode with you to talk about this. And, of course, I had to say yes. It's an interesting topic because, we definitely come from the world where, for the longest time, this was our only go-to option, for reading, graphic novels, books, magazines, and that kind of stuff. So now where, these are becoming more the rarity as opposed to what's more commonplace. And, I've kind of fought that whole mindset for the kind of longest time because I'm very much somebody who likes to have physical things in my hand. But having said that, digital is pretty damn convenient, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Now, for yourself, what's your just kind of general take before we kind of get more of the details here? Are you more of a fan of actual books and magazines and novels, or have you kind of gravitated more kind of towards the digital like I have?
I would say the latter in general, and not just books and movies. Like I'm at a point now where I get irritated if I have to use pen and paper to write something. Like, give me my phone, give me a notes app, let me quick scroll through, type it out, boom, and just get it done and over with. Like, writing takes too much time and it's irritating. So I'd say overall I'm more digital. There are some exceptions, we're about to discuss books and there are some exceptions in that category. Music, there are definitely exceptions I could make. For sure. You talk about having, episodes. There are scads of stuff you and I could talk about on this show.
And you just had indicated that the music, that's an episode that we're still trying to pull together at some point because I want to have multiple peeps on that one. But yeah, it's the type of thing where, go ahead, Mike.
I'll give you a great, sorry, just back on the subject. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but here's perfect. You recently had an episode over the ear headphones versus earbuds.
Yep.
You see what you've got on. You see what I've got on.
Yep.
Like, I could have talked about that for a while too.
Right.
But the books one. What's that?
I do have in-ear ones too, because as I mentioned on the episode, it kind of depends on the scenario. There's times where having these clunky things on my head isn't necessarily the best thing.
Right. No, most of the time it's a hybrid, because the earbuds I do, you notice these are over the ear.
Yep.
And like, these are the only way I'll actually wear earbuds. Like those little ones, they'll pop right out of my ear and I'll lose them, and I'm not taking that chance. So
Yeah, branching out a little bit on that. I know we're getting slightly off topic, but I don't care because we're gonna do it anyways.
sorry, y'all.
Have you? No, it's all good. No, I love the discussion. Have you ever? Because I've tried these and I was really skeptical of them at first, but then I like listened to them and it was like mind blowing because I really like audio. Have you ever listened to or used the bone conducting headphones where they literally don't go in or on your ear, but they sit here and then the sound conducts essentially through your skull? Have you ever tried those?
I actually have a pair of those that I use for work.
They're so freaking good.
Yeah,
They sound incredible. I was blown away
yeah.
the first time I listened to them. I was like, "How is this happening?" It's just vibrating my bones in my head, and it sounds so clear. It's amazing.
Yeah, I saw my boss had a pair.
Yeah,
and I noticed his, and I'm like, "That's so weird." So
You're
we were
wearing them
talking about
wrong.
it once, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I thought at first." But he was like, "No, it's."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to give this a shot." So I had,
Right.
a little bit of my side income money.
Right.
I spent it on a pair of those and tried them out for work, because we're mostly, my job, I'm a trainer, but unless I'm actually training a class, I'm at home. So
Yeah.
I'm on like Teams meetings and that quite a bit. So that's what I got it for. So I could hear, other stuff going on outside, maybe my wife and blown away by the sound quality and how it works. It's just like, wow.
Yeah. Before we get back to the book thing, if any company that makes bone conducting headphones happens to be watching this episode of this channel, if you want to send me a review copy of your bone conducting headphones to have me review, I will gladly accept and do such, because I would love to try out some, because the ones that I tried for like a few years back and it was still kind of virgin technology. I can only imagine what Neurowinds sound like. I would be stoked to kind of try those out, but I digress on that. We're here to talk about books because, like, for the longest time, so I'm an 80s, 90s kid. I was born in 1980. I very much grew up in the physical comic book era. I used to blow a good portion of my weekly allowance on candy comic books. That was my every Friday evening after school, was to go and buy candy and buy the latest Batman comic book. That was my routine. I love physical books. And to boot too, I also grew up the son of a librarian, so very much kind of grew up in that physical book culture. But since then, we live more in the age of the computer, and now the age of the mobile devices. Things have very much kind of changed to whereas now, I could have literally every book that I own on something like this and have it be really accessible wherever I want to. That is a game changer, because when I originally, so this is kind of crossing over to what we talked about with Mr. Melchor today about the iPads. When I first kind of saw this kind of device, I'm like, cool, so that looks like a big smartphone that doesn't make phone calls. What's the use of this thing? Then when I first saw an ebook, a digital book, I was just like, mind kind of blown.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's weird. I'll give you a great example. Like, and some people are going to hear this and are going to think blasphemy, but well, it happens. I ordered the Nitro book from Guy Evans. They had a deal. I think around Christmas time, he had a deal. I think it was like 30, but the deal wasn't for just the book itself. Obviously it came with it, but there were things like old copies of old WCW Nitro formats, trading cards, a couple audio things. And it came with a copy of the ebook from Amazon that you could get on Kindle.
Yep.
So what I've done, this is a part where people look at me like it's blasphemy, because the ebook actually has added chapters and added content.
Yep.
I've been reading the ebook version on my Chromebook. And once in a while, the physical book, I'll see where I've left off and just kind of stick the bookmark in it, like pretending I'm reading the physical book. But I'm not. I'm reading the EPUB version of it from Kindle. And that's kind of how I like to read a lot of my stuff. Like you talked about fitting all of your books on one device. Like here in a few weeks, we're going to be taking a trip out of town to celebrate my daughter's graduation.
Nice.
And I'm bringing my Chromebook because we're going to be at like a state park, kind of staying around there for a few days. We're going to be, my wife and I probably going to be chilling on the beach, reading, doing whatever. And yeah, I'm not bringing 8, 10 freaking books with me. I'm bringing the one Chromebook and downloading and loading what I want to read. And I've got everything right there. Like, why? I ain't lugging a backpack to the beach just for books. That's not a thing anymore. Technology makes it so that doesn't have to be a thing anymore. I'll also tell you that having been said, you and I come from similar backgrounds, because I remember once, I'd say at least every other week, probably once a week, I'd go down to like the local 7-Eleven or Jiffy, whatever it was, pick the 75-cent comic books right off the stand, along with something to eat or drink, and then walk home and go home and, eat my snacks and read, basically. And even now, I was in a shop a week or two ago, and I see like entire, like there's a place called The Great Escape here in Louisville. It's a pop culture shop, but they have quite a bit of comics too. Nice. And they have a section where they have entire runs of comics that are backed up. One of them was like Who's Who in the DC universe, like they did in the 80s. Just here's all of our characters, here's all of their statues, all of everything. And I used to have a lot of those, but I lost them. They wanted like $30 for all 26 issues, like all physical, separate 26 comic books. And I snatched the hell out of it and brought it home because I wanted a physical copy of that thing that I remember having when I was a kid and enjoyed the hell out of. So I went and got me another one once I found it.
That's one thing that makes me reluctant, to cross over into this digital realm with not only books, but with a lot of things, because you had mentioned going to the store in person. And I think that's a big thing that's lost with going digital is, not only with books and comic books, one thing that I used to love going to midnight releases for video games, because you got a chance to kind of shoot the shit with other gamers and just kind of, it's turned into an event, like when Halo 2 came out, Call of Duties, when they would kind of come out, they would do like midnight launches, and you're lined up there with like 1,000 other like-minded people and just having a blast. Now, when you buy these things kind of digitally, you're bypassing all of that. So that's the only part of this newer stuff that I don't necessarily like, is it does create a little bit of isolation sometimes, which is not a bad thing, because there's no real way to, I guess maybe you could go on a FaceTime call and read a book together or something like that, but that's just, it's kind of not the same to kind of talk about,
No.
To actually go into, like, especially if we want to cross back over into music briefly, going to a music store to buy records, CDs, and that kind of stuff, like we used to be able to do. That was something I always really look forward to doing. We don't do it anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right about that. And I do think the communal experience is making a comeback to a point, but it's not nearly, like those midnight video game release parties, or, I mean, hell, depending on the band and the album. Like if I want to go to an album release party now, I'm having to go to freaking New York or Los Angeles, because that's almost the only place you see them, except once in a blue moon, some band will have one near, their hometown or whatever. Like Code Orange might have one in Pittsburgh or something, but it's not, ain't nothing local like that. There are no record stores at all having midnight release parties for anything. I don't even think there was one for like Taylor Swift's new one, as much as that's like smashed records and sold out basically all over the planet. Like not even a record that big warranted an album release party like anywhere near where I'm at, let alone some of the stuff I get into and listen to. That kind of thing just doesn't happen. Well, having been said, I will combine those two worlds a bit. I need to send you this link offline.
Yeah,
I did see recently where a death metal show broke out in a GameStop parking lot at a video game release.
Right, no,
so
that's cool.
I'll have to send you that.
Right, because it's the type of thing where it's tricky, because it's kind of interesting as well, and this goes back as well, because even during like my late teens and whatnot. Even then, I was starting to kind of drift away a little bit from reading physical books, because then a really cool kind of innovation happened as well. I'm talking about the audiobook. Now, that is something that I still am really kind of big into, because it's the type of thing where, I have to travel out for my day job. We have a lot of kind of devices and stuff like this now. The audiobook is become the main way that I like to read books. There's one of the best things out there, and I wish I could, something I'll look into. Maybe hopefully they can be maybe a sponsor of the channel, because they have offer codes and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about Audible, where you pay like a monthly or a yearly subscription fee, and you get a new audiobook of your choice. They have their whole library. You just pick one every month, and it stays in your library, and you can listen to it however you want, on whatever you want, as loud or as quiet as you want. So that is a really cool innovation as well, and something that I'm still kind of really big into, and always have been. Even back when they were on cassette tapes. That's right. We go as far back as cassette tapes.
Yes, we do. Around these parts, we certainly do.
It's the type of thing where, like, I literally remember taking audiobooks back on cassette tapes back to the library and getting in trouble because I either listened to part of the cassette tape, but then like rewind it, then listen, rewind, and then the tape would get too tight, and then it would start to like talk like really kind of slow, and then your Walkman would run out of battery, and then that was another problem. It's younger people now would not be able to share our pain on that one, but that's kind of where we come from, and it's changed relatively rapidly over the last few years, and I'm very torn because, like I said, I think that the big issue here that I'm not a fan of is that it's resulting in a lot of this new kind of technology. As much as they'd like to see that kind of brings us together, I find it kind of has the opposite effect. On even we talked about VR, Apple Vision, all that kind of stuff, where it's the type of thing where you're really kind of experiencing it by yourself, and that social aspect is just completely stripped out of it, right? So that is the part that I still kind of want to hold on to, because I think that there still is a place for physical books. Where do you think that it's still something worth kind of hanging on to for the future going forward?
Like why I think physical books might be worth hanging on to going
forward? Like what specific, like are there certain things like like comic books, or because like personally, like for myself, I think that something that should kind of never go away, being published in physical form. I'd like to see kind of like editorial, like news articles and stuff, still be kind of published physically. That way, if anything did happen to these farms of servers were to go down somehow, there'd still be a record, kind of like what happens. And I think law, government documents and stuff like that still need to be produced in a physical format just for preservation's sake.
Yeah, no, I could. Yeah, I would agree with those. I was thinking for a second, I have a hard time coming up with anything like entertainment, like fiction, novels, comics. I have a hard time coming up with anything in that realm that I think should stay physical. Like, I haven't tried it in a while, not since Amazon bought it and took it proper. But like Comixology, I used to read all the time, and they have like the guided view. Like, if you have a printed comic page and you've got a lot of detail going on in a small panel, you're kind of having to like look in and see what that is.
Right.
No, guided view, you can just double tap and it blows that panel up to the entire page, so you can see and read everything clearly, and it walks you through where the dialogue should go, which I mean, you're well aware as I am, especially with your double spreads and that it can be kind of confusing, like where am I supposed to follow and read? Something like guided view completely solves that problem, because it will walk you along that order and show you all of that detail. That's how I've enjoyed reading comics for a while, even though I have quite a few physically.
Speaking of comics as well, because also where I think there should be kind of preservation in that respect is in the comic book realm, especially some of the big kind of standout ones. And I'm going to show you one. I'm going to show everyone, because this is one I have in my personal possession. This is like one of my pride and joys of my comic book collection. So I'll show the front here first. And and Mike might already know kind of what this is. I'll show
Oh,
you the back.
absolutely.
Right, so this is the Dark Knight Returns, but so this is a hardcover version of it. So, and it's broken down into 4 separate volumes.
I was going to say, so it's the individual chapters
with different artwork on each of them, right?
And how
And
it was originally released.
Exactly, right?
Oh,
and just look, I'll do my best to kind of show you guys, even just like that original
yeah.
artwork, that kind of stuff is still worth hanging on to. Now, is it going to be endlessly kind of like produced, for generations to come? Maybe not. But stuff like this is still worth holding on to. And this will be pried out of my cold, dead hands.
Oh,
I still have something to say about it, okay?
I do not blame you one bit. Like, I have some editions like that. Archival stuff like that, like seminal works. Yeah, I could see, physical copies of those being saved. Absolutely. Like, I've got a few of those. Like, I have back very similarly, I have before, so this is way back before there was like a sequel to The Dark Knight Returns.
Yep.
There was I'd have to put it in air quotes now, complete Frank Miller Batman. It was a hardcover, like leather bound hardcover that had, and it compiled Batman Year One, a solo story he did about Wanted Dead or Alive, A Christmas Story, and then The Dark Knight Returns, all in one leather bound. It's a gorgeous edition, and the same. Somebody's got that. That might be buried with me, and if somebody tries to reach it out, I'll be like,
right. But like this one, that just like for those of you who are possibly interested, it was such a again venturing a different a bit of a tangent, but it's cool. One of my all-time favorite Batman stories, just because it really broke the mold on what like a Batman story is, and even just the genre and the characters themselves. I mean, Batman he's an old man, Bruce Wayne, old guy. Superman, probably like the biggest villain in the story. He kills more people than the Joker does in that story. And Robin is a female character, which would probably resonate with a lot of people currently. So like it's such an interesting story, and not to spoil it for anybody, but it's been out long enough. I don't think it's spoiler worthy still. But I mean, that ending of how the Dark Knight Returns, how that part of that story ends is so good. It's so Bruce Wayne, so Batman way to do it. It's so good. If you have not, if you are even slightly a comic book or a graphic novel fan, is a must read. If you can get it physically or digitally. I actually have it digitally on my iPad too. That's how much I like that one. So I read that all the time. So, but at the end of the day, it's still, there still needs to be some physical media, for the foreseeable future. Is there a day where there just won't be any physical books made? Sure. Luckily, you and I will be long dead and not have to worry about it by then.
Fair enough. I mean, I can see a day when physical media is gone and there is no such thing, but I also don't think that's going to be for a long time. Like, we're going to have physical things still around, whether, books, whatever shape or form, movies, music, you name it. I mean, it's going to be a while, but because those physical things still, people have an attachment to them. Whether, whether there have been since childhood like us, or if it's something they see, there's a difference in holding something physically and getting, what was intended to come from it that way, rather than just looking at it on a screen. I mean, there's really pros and cons for both, but I don't think physical's going away anytime soon. The short version.
Having said that, too, as much as I love, this and some of my other physical stuff that I have, I don't actually foresee myself really buying too much more physical kind of stuff. For me, just it's the ultra convenience of that digital, whether it be an audiobook, whether it be movies, music, video games. that I think is going to be probably the first genre stuff that we truly see a move completely away from physical media. I think that's going to be the first industry to do it completely. Doing my day job, I get to speak with representatives from Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo all the time, and all of them are hinting at like this next generation of consoles. So like past Nintendo Switch, PS5, and Xbox Series X, that especially Microsoft, they will likely be the first ones to completely pull out of that physical media. I mean, they're already talking in stores at the end of this year to basically be selling no more physical games in store in the store that I work at. So it's going to be a tough transition because, like you said, the big thing with this is that a lot of us still like to have that physical thing to hold in our hand. That you feel more tied to it when you can hold it more in your hand. You get more appreciation out of it when you can do that. And I think that's a big thing lost with digital media, as super convenient as it is. And the other kind of issue that we didn't really kind of hint about, I'll make sure I hint at before we go, what was really interesting, especially in the digital book arena, because one of the things that they wanted to do when the iBook store first came out on the Apple side of things, Kindle and that kind of stuff, is it was really aimed at trying to lower the cost of books for people. But it actually ended up having kind of the reverse effect, or not changing too much, because a lot of digital books are the same cost, if not more expensive sometimes. So it almost seems to have had the reverse effect. We see it in the games industry as well, where digital games cost the same as a physical game. It should not be the case, because you're not having to pay for shipping, packaging, any of that kind of stuff. The digital cost should be cheaper, but it really isn't. So I think that to make it even more palatable for a lot of people, digital media across the board needs to become more affordable.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like using, our main topic here today, books, as an example. There's no printing cost. There's no binding. There's no shipping. There's no any of that. How in the hell are you going to justify a digital book being the same price as a physical edition, let alone more?
A little more.
Like, that's ridiculous. Yep. Now, in some... you talk about, games probably being one of the first things that sheds physical media altogether.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if movies and television shows are not far behind. Like, I have a hard time buying Blu-ray anything new, especially nowadays. Because, I've got Netflix. I've got Amazon Prime. I've got Max. I've got Hulu. I've got whatever friggin' service is out there to watch a TV or movie show on. If it exists, it's there. You talked about another
Tubi
discussion I would have loved to have gotten on. Yeah, Tubi.
Tubi is fantastic.
Yeah. We need to discuss Pluto TV.
As you guys can kind of tell from behind me and a previous video I did, I'm a huge fan of vintage sci-fi horror and stuff like that. My walls are literally littered with movie posters from that, and those services like Tubi, like Pluto, which you and I will definitely do a future episode on, because I definitely want to delve into that one, because there's some cool aspects to it. Because and what was really interesting with the Tubi episode that I did is that is run by Fox, which is one of the last companies that I would expect to put out a service, not only that, but a free service, and something that they are saying is always going to be free. Now, what's really intriguing with that one is that a hint that possibly like network television, that kind of stuff, is going back in that direction? Because I would personally be all for that. Or even if you just paid a one-time thing, then you have access to everything that comes into the future. There's lots of possibilities here, but I think that overcharging people for any kind of content, especially when you there's nothing physically to have, if you're just having access to it, that price needs to lower. Especially here in Canada, we pay a little bit of a premium for whatever reason, Netflix and that kind of stuff. I look at it and I think, what am I getting for my value for my money here? Because at the end of the day, with a lot of newer movies, I find with older movies, I can watch them a gazillion times and never get tired of them. But most newer movies, I watch maybe once or twice and never revisit them. So with a service like Netflix or something, I wouldn't find myself just constantly watching stuff. So I think that the cost structure with that stuff needs to change, and more of these free kind of services, because they are absolutely fantastic. Like you go into Tubi right now, you're going to find something that you want to watch.
Yeah. I mean, and Pluto and a lot of those fast services, they call them, are pretty much set up the same way.
Yeah.
But, going back to where we were, I mean, service, whether it's Tubi or Pluto or any of these other streaming things, like I said, movie or TVs are the ones I can see where physical may be going away sooner than later.
Yeah.
Books might also be headed in that direction because we've got, there's Amazon Kindle, there's a whole bunch of other services. I mean, hell, I have a membership with my local library. I haven't gone into the library and physically checked out a book in forever.
Right.
Because they also have a digital service. The one I use is Hoopla. And that's what I check out. Like, that's kind of how I keep up on newer comic book stuff. I'll read it there first. And, if it's a particularly good story, I might think about going and picking up like a physical copy to have on the bookshelf. But most of the time, I'm checking out stuff. Even from my library, I'm checking out stuff digitally and reading it that way. So
it's such a shift from what we used to do. It's crazy that just in our lifetime, it's changed so much. And like I said, I hope that to some extent, physical media doesn't fully ever go away, especially with some really kind of important works. I think still need to be recreated in that physical form just for preservation's sake. That way, if anything poor happened, I know maybe that's kind of bad thinking to think that something's going to happen in the future, but you never know. But I mean, it'd be nice to still have some of these important works stay with us forever. That way, even like in 500 years from now, people can look and be like, oh, there's, that really cool thing, I can go and physically look at it, because I mean, it's not the same as opposed to now, like you had mentioned with books and charging, with digital books and charging more, where I can see justifying that is you had hinted at it earlier, when you can take that but enhance the experience of it, like with maybe make the frames kind of like anime when it comes to digital comic books and that kind of stuff. If you're adding added value and adding more to the experience, then I'm more than happy to pay a little extra.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, like the guided experience I talked about was part and parcel with the Comixology app itself. And I think quite a few other comics apps have done that.
There was one, I think it was put out in DVD form, but I think they did it in digital format as well. They took the Watchmen graphic novel.
Motion comic.
They did the motion comics. Those are absolutely fantastic, and there aren't very many of them. That's something I'd like to even see more of. So I think that's a really cool thing. It's kind of a nice like in between, right?
Right.
So
there's also, you talked about audiobooks. Like with comics, I'm like, how would that work? But some dude on YouTube actually proved me wrong. I can't remember the name of the account, like the Comic Storian or something like that.
Yep.
But it's like dramatic readings of like entire big old comic arcs. Like some I haven't read, but I've been curious about. I'm like, I'm not going to have the time to read it. I found this YouTube channel where it's like, I kind of don't have to now because dude tells me what's going on. And
right.
It's kind of helped me whether to pick up and want to read something, or honestly, if I wanted to be like, no, that sounds terrible, I'll pass. Like,
right. And something I'd like to see make a comeback: radio dramas. Those are so entertaining to listen to. The most famous one, of course, with Orson Welles in that War of the Worlds broadcast, which you can find. I mean, you want to talk about something hitting at the right moment and being timed and executed so perfectly. You literally had people running for their lives. That's something that if you have not heard that, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on a lot of music streaming services. Go look up that, War of the Worlds HD Orson Welles thing. It's literally done in like a news type format where people were literally led to believe that the Earth was being invaded by Martians, and to like literally to the point where he actually got in trouble for it.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
People
it was like
lost their damn minds.
They lost their minds.
This was like a real thing,
right? Because it was clever because the way it was orchestrated. We're getting to kind of the finer details of this, but it's really, really interesting. Is that they orchestrated it in a way because they knew that people weren't necessarily listening at the beginning. So they made it because they knew a lot of people were watching a different radio show, because people used to channel surf on radio just like they did for TV for years, where there'd be like a bit of a lull in the program and then they would change to another channel. So they basically orchestrated with another radio station to kind of slow things down a little bit so people would change the channel, so that they didn't hear the initial announcement as part of the show saying that this was a staged kind of a thing. I'm paraphrasing it. So they didn't hear that initial part saying that it was essentially it's a radio show. So they literally tuned in to the sound of this kind of stuff happening, and just it's wild. Just go listen to it if you haven't. Do yourself a favor. It's highly entertaining. It's like from back in the 30s, but like it still holds up as like one of the coolest things that somebody has ever done. Yeah,
it's pretty. Yeah, it is pretty crazy. It was
pretty wild.
The thing about something like that happening now is like almost
you can't. You wouldn't be able to recreate that now.
Right?
It'd be impossible. It hit at the exact right moment and capitalized on people being afraid. You know, it was right before the scare for World War II happened, and it kind of tapered off, and then it happened again. So it hit right at that point where people were feeling very vulnerable, very afraid, and just boom. The night that panicked America, I think, is what they referred to it as. So it was quite something. But yeah, to kind of wrap things up here, it's digital books are really super kind of convenient. But some of our important works, government documents, any of that kind of stuff, any historical things, works of Shakespeare, any of that kind of stuff that's worth kind of holding on to, I think still needs to be preserved in physical format, whether it be in like in the Library of Congress or just somewhere where it can be preserved forever. So that way generations from now can look at the stuff and, understand, kind of where we come from and where they come from as well, with that context. So it's important to have, and I hope it never really fully goes away, because I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah, like I said, I think some archival editions could definitely do well to still be around, not only now but way down the road. I would love to see somebody do like time capsules. I know they were a thing. I'd hope that they still are. But yeah, there are some definitely seminal works that would need to be preserved physically. I would
Absolutely,
think, for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up here. Before we do go, the floor is yours to plug whatever you want to.
I mean, there's a couple things. Most social media, you can find me as Melchor Media on Facebook, on Instagram. I would say X, but I left. So I would rather, YouTube, Thread. Well, I don't know if I'm on Threads. Is that TikTok? I am. But yeah, Melchor Media. I'm in several places. Of course, the shirt I'm wearing now is also in a bunch of places. Grindhouse Pro Wrestling Academy. We had probably our biggest show of the year last night that I'm still like emotionally drained from, but in a very good way. It was an excellent time. But yes, you can find all of us and me occasionally being a jerk to people as the commissioner of Grindhouse there too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll see if I can post a link on that. For whatever reason, YouTube has gotten really weird with posting links to content they feel is unrelated to what I'm doing, but I will try and at least link that, because I'd seen your post on Facebook. That venue was beautifully lit, by the way. Like it looked really kind of cool. So it was very well done. So people definitely do check it out. If you're looking for a bit of a alternative to like if WWE and that kind of stuff is maybe kind of turning you off, there's lots of other alternatives that you can check out, and maybe you'll find something you like.
Yeah, there are. If you don't like WWE, if you don't like AEW, if you're a pro wrestling fan, there is something out there for you. Especially, your local independents. You never know who you're going to see there that you may see on TV on an international stage like 5 years from now. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that wraps up here for this time. We'll see you guys on the next one where we talk about how tech matters. HTM Tech is brought to you by Microplay. Located at 265 King George Road in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. for all of your video game and collectible needs.